school over the past month and certainly beyond. But it's been a busy month for the school, but certainly been a busy month for you all too. And so just want to thank you from taking part in some school visits over the past 3 weeks to providing kind of some offline insights around recruitment strategies for our team, to devoting significant time with regard to Zoom and this potential purchase of our high school building. And then, helping out with a model and updating the 5-year model. There's been a lot. So I just want to say thank you to y'all. And I think one of the reasons that certainly we've done well as a school and continue to grow and prosper has been through this board, which makes us special. So I just want to thank you for that, and know that I appreciate all the time y'all put in after hours, more Zoom time. And so thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, have a school report.
So let's see. Let me get my notes out. I'm right here. So I think this is the point in the year. You all been down this road before where we begin thinking about next year pretty formally and strategically, while also kind of thinking about the managing of the day-to-day with the current year. And so it's a busy time, and it will continue to be over the next couple of months. I just say that about kind of where we are in the year at the early point in February. So I think with that, we're going to talk about all of the elements here in the major updates. So I'm going to jump right to miscellaneous updates and just highlight those. Sometimes we don't give them attention and they slip by. So I want to do so today rather briefly. So I think one, just with the max enrollment revision, as you know, our max enrollment is 655 right now for a few different reasons, and we're seeking to bring that down to 615. That would allow for us to be within that 85% threshold, while also just more importantly, organizing and structuring our school in a way that kind of makes sense given our program. So that has now been, we submitted our revision or application in December. We've gone back and forth with our authorizer, Paolo, our liaison, and they're now preparing to bring that forth to the Board of Regents, very likely in March. And so there's an open kind of committee forum for the public to comment on this revision. I don't think there'll be much commentary going on for that revision, but that's a formality in the process. That's happening, and then it goes before the Board of Regents. And so we have every reason to believe, based on our communication with the liaison, that this will be approved, and coming into the new year, we'll have a new max enrollment of 615. So there's one update. Any questions there? Great, I'll move us forward. Dr. Adams, good to have you here. Thank you so much. We're just going over sort of updates from the school leader report right now.
Okay, great.
So secondly, just the high school CPTL search. As you know, our current CPTL has taken on this role, an interim role. The idea is to have her move into a curricular role, grades 6 through 12, in the coming year. That was in the cards for this year, and then we made a change when there was a vacancy in the CPTL role. That's the high school co-principal of teaching and learning role at the school. So we have been actively posting for that position, that important position. We've got at least one person internally that we're looking at, and then one person who we interviewed from another nearby school yesterday. And that interview was promising. And so now for us, we're considering internally whether to invite that person in for what would be a fourth round interview. So that's happening and in process. And so that's just an update or FYI for the team. Any questions there? Cool. And then beyond that, just retention forecasts for 21-22. We did administer a survey a few weeks ago and have kind of data back as I've presented here in the report. The numbers seem very similar to last year, where our retention was quite high for a few reasons, pandemic related and not. And so right now, I think given those numbers, given some of the communication happening, we're circling back with individual people just to sort of talk about individual circumstances, interests, aspirations, et cetera. And I think, the name of the game for us is to sort of keep our most talented educators who are impacting kids in classrooms, and then look to expand on that team to put forward the best team possible. And so that's just in process right now. I'll provide a more formal breakdown of numbers and things next month, as I did last year. Any questions at this point there? Cool. And then moving forward, reopening communication with stakeholders. Just to give you an update, we talked about this last month, but we did communicate to our families, staff, et cetera, that we're going to continue with our remote programming and our pod programming through the 12th of April. And during the first week of March, or during the week of the 8th of March, we'll provide another update given information we have at hand about how we will then conclude the year. And so another FYI for team here. Any questions there?
Yeah, do you keep track of how many of your teachers are vaccinated?
We have publicized to our staff and encouraged all staff to get vaccinated this time. We're not at a point where we've kind of collected documentation on like whether folks have gotten that second shot as of yet. That's something that we've talked about and will do coming back in the building once we've devised kind of our full plans for a return.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. It's kind of the other way around. It's sort of, if you know how many people have it, that might influence your decision on when you have people come back. So I don't know how you would go about it, but I think it'd be an interesting data point because they've all been eligible for a while now. And I know it's hard to get the shot, and I know.
Yeah. Offhand, I know that there are a handful of folks who've gotten at least one round. I myself have not gotten, and so it has been tricky. I think post that second week of the vaccine being available, like things have really kind of plumbed up. But noted.
Is the April policy for the middle school also?
It's middle school, high school. You may have seen in the news this past week that middle schools at the DOE level are kind of back in form, and that's hybrid. So they're going hybrid as elementary schools are now. And they did that back from mid-September, late September to late November. And then if you recall, they went completely remote at that time because of the spike in rates, and now are finally moving back into their hybrid form. So that's happening. I think I just shared with you that Success updated their plans last month, and so they're going remote for the full year. And then the other update is that Achievement First on their network has a fairly complex way of kind of thinking about when they go to hybrid, and it has to do with a weighted average of rates within the zip codes they serve. And if it's above 5%, then they'll open up or allow for the schools that they have to open up in New York. And if not, they close down and go remote. So they're experimenting with that. So we're on top of getting a sense of what other schools are doing. And, over the coming 3 weeks, there's more information to gather, and then some decision to be made about what's best for school. So.
What's your sense on what parents want to do? Are they still kind of firmly in the camp of staying home, or is that changing?
It was about 2/3. Let's continue with what we're doing. We're happy with it. And then a third that would show some interest in coming back in some form. And that's sort of the latest numbers that we've gathered. And that was back in late December.
Okay.
I think with that, what that brings
numbers
up.
were arguably worse than now, but still not right.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I'll just add my voice. That it sounds like you've given them a date, and so I'd probably stick with your date. But I would try as hard as you can to try to, when you do bring people back in April, bring it back as a full 5-day a week in-person school rather than hybrid. And if that doesn't seem right, to do classical does it, but I've also heard it's sort of more common throughout the country, where you just have a cohort who's all in person and then a cohort who's all remote. And you just people can opt into whichever they want.
Yeah. I mean, that's the consideration. And then it's just I think that I had a conversation with someone yesterday about this, just what we'd have to think about what the best staffing model for something like that would be, that's sort of the rub. We would have to have roughly a third of our kids at our high school in the building at a time, and couldn't do more than that. At the middle school, it's around the same, maybe a little more concentration wise, but it still leaves a lot of students outside the building. And there's a question for me about like kids outside the building, either who opt out or who aren't just on a day in which they're in, like the degree to which they're set up to kind of independently go about their learning in the same way that for those who visited our school a few weeks ago, I mean, you may have noticed that like the teachers really kind of like are on top of strongly encouraging all kids to like engage in a prompt, a task, et cetera, et cetera. And so without that, I worry about what that might mean for kids who are at home and not getting that same level of kind of like nudging, encouragement.
No, I
So
agree. I
you
think,
think about the staffing.
yeah, to me, that's why you can't do hybrid. Exactly. So it's like a full, you're running parallel schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, I mean, I'm a little bit with Jake in that I think the underlying concern of, I think when the numbers come in, it's going to prove that you can't match the quality of in-person learning by being remote. And so, you know, long-term kids are going to suffer from this. I understand that there are other constraints and it may not be practical, but
Yeah.
you know, I can't imagine that it's going to be anywhere close. So
No, all along we've said it's like remote isn't going to be as good as our full in person, but originally we thought that it would be better than hybrid. There have been some new ideas that have come out over the past year through experimentation. So I think it does require another look at like what the possibilities could be, and staffing is really the major component of all that. So those are the kind of factors at play. The other announcement that came out today actually was just that the mayor had said that the city would not rule out the possibility of some form of remote in the fall, and that's kind of like just a downer for.
yeah, I mean, that's
What's
you know,
that?
he's also about to be voted out of office, right? So I don't know how much people are going to listen to him in the fall.
Yeah.
Going to have 2 months left.
Yeah, no, I think just the possibility, like I was really hoping for not having to sort of get complicated here. Like we're all happy, we're all back in person fully. There's no problem with that. People are committed to it. And so it just creates more complexity to some of the planning for next year and some of the possibilities.
I also think, I mean, if you're thinking about staffing, I understand, but if you're talking about, you know, mid-April to whenever you would go, mid-June, you're talking about 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Remember, you still have, I mean, I don't want to get into details here, but you still have some funding.
Yeah.
Right, that you could use. And
no, you're right.
There's a lot of considerations here where if it's a little more of an expensive model for 2 months, I don't think that's going to break anything if it's the right thing to do to, you know, catch kids up and send them off and, you know, look into whether or not some kind of summer school can be done to do some more catching up or, you know, I think we should look at that. We shouldn't just say, oh, it's going to be too expensive or it's going to be too complicated, because I think, it's going to hurt your graduation rate in 2 years.
Yeah.
Are they going to not do testing again this year?
They haven't said yet. They canceled Regents. So as you may recall, Regents exams are administered 3 times a year: January, June, and August. And they canceled the exams this past month in January. And there's been no new announcement about June or August, although the state has recently called for comment about the proposal. I think this is right. Proposal to waive testing federally for this coming year. So I think they're kind of setting up either to be able to make a decision or make a decision of not offering or not mandating Regents exams in June and August again. So, I mean, right now our plan is just to continue as is, as if testing is going on in June. But that's the latest news.
Okay.
So I talked a bit about staff forecasts and retention and then remote plan. I guess that's all for the school leader report, unless there are other questions. And we'll talk about other elements here, including 584 Driggs, including graduation, and including enrollment momentarily.
Okay, any questions? If not, we'll move to the dashboard.
Yeah, let's go to the dashboard. And I should think there are generally 2 tables I want to highlight for you all. There may be 6 or so updates. Some of them are not significantly different from the last month or worth noting because they're either in good form or just steady. So I think just with table one, I'll just say enrollment for this year has remained pretty consistent. We were up one and down one over the past 3 weeks. We're at 533, which is just under our budgeted enrollment of 536. The plan here is we're going to continue to seek to backfill as we have, but we're really moving toward committing more of our time and attention to recruitment for 21, 22 at this point in time. So there's a bit of a shift or pivot to attending to that. So that's the latest on enrollment. And then I'm going to skip right down to table 7, sort of student recruitment as of now. And so at this point in time, we're in pretty good form at the high school with 9th grade recruitment with 99 applications in, and that doesn't, so we'll probably have about 40 or so seats that we're filling from non-Unity students coming in, and so I think that seems good. I think the concern for me right now is 6th grade applications are down significantly from last year at this point in time. We're at 60. We'd hope to be closer to 100. Last year at this time, we were at about 160. So we're down overall. And so, some of that's due to some of the things that we presented out, Chris and I presented out 2 months ago or a month ago with regard to not having in-person fairs going on. A lot of applications are collected in the fall through that time. But I think still we're concerned about these numbers now. And there's some doubling down that has to happen in my mind over the course of the next 3 months to sort of like, be at a place where we're closer to where we were last year at about 250 applications by lottery time to be in the same form. And so if you ask me what are the 3 or 4 things keeping you up at night right now, this would be one of them.
But Josh, aren't we currently under enrolled in the 6th grade?
We're at 70. I think table 1 provides that. We're at 78, 73 students in the 6th grade right now.
When target would be more like 90?
Target is 94.
Yeah, so, okay. So we need some serious course correction.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like, Becca, you need to both recruit for 6th and backfill the rising 6th grade into 7th, right?
Yeah. Over the past 2 years, like I'm like just based on trends, we tend to be fine. Like we've backfilled fully in the 7th grade from 6th to 7th every year. We've never had a problem there. Like, so we'll start off low in 6th grade, backfill to 7th, we're at full at 7th, and like 6th grade is really the year in which we are under enrolled if we are. And so I'm less concerned about backfilling the 73 to get to 86, which is our target enrollment for the 7th grade next year, and more about like we need more applications in to then be in the game to have a full 94 students in our 6th grade in 2021.
In your school district for DOE schools, are they now like all lottery, or is that only in the other parts of Brooklyn?
Chris, what's your sense there?
Most schools, all charter schools have lotteries, but the district schools, it's a mix. Some are still screened. The DOE opened up the middle school application much later. They opened up in January, where I think they usually open up in November, December. So everything has been pushed back. And there's been no fairs, no in-person fairs whatsoever.
So in terms of like things we're doing right now, some of them are changes from last year. Some of them are similar because they worked last year. We have 5 kind of things on the list. Chris, add to them if you feel like we should. So we got a major kind of mailing to prospective 5th grade students going out ASAP. And so that's, if you remember in prior years, Marion, you were around then, but we used a group called Vanguard to kind of get mailings out to different families, and they basically provide that service for a price, and then they do the mailing and they give you a list of students that goes out to you. That's one. We're going to do that in a slightly different way this year. We haven't done it in the past 2 years because 2 years ago it didn't provide as much benefit, but we're going back to that and going to target it a bit more to the zip codes that we've had promise in and that align with our bus routes. So second, we're contacting feeder elementary schools, which is something we've done in the past, but are now actively doing that as we have in the past. And so the tracking for that, I'm pleased with. We've got good data from the past 3 or 4 years on which schools have been best in having kids attend our middle school. And so that's a continuation. We're right now creating a promo video of just like our remote program. Like, here's what's going on in our school remotely. And we feel good about that program. And so want to let the world know that, like, hey, this is our school, compare it with your school. And we feel as if that would gain the attention of some families that we haven't yet gained the attention of. We've got social media continuing. And so that's been good to us, probably our main form of recruitment over the past several years. And so that's still down. We're just getting better at it. And so for example, providing the promo video within social media should provide and getting us more clicks and more interest. And then I think with regard to yield, we've done this in different ways in the past, but not this early. We're going to be making personal calls to all applicants now, even before the lottery, and just saying, hey, we want to tell you a bit more about the school, what questions you have. So it's really about like customer care and like making connections and relationships with families now. In the past, we've done home visits after the lottery. I've done some of that, but haven't taken this step before. And we feel like that is necessary given that social distancing and not being able to see families and kids face to face is a challenge. So that's it.
Lottery?
Pardon?
When is the lottery again?
April 5th, right, Chris?
No, sorry, it's the 1st. I want to have it that legally the earliest we can have it is the 1st, and I want to get our acceptance notice out before they receive acceptance note from any other school. So as early as possible on April 1st.
Are you sure you want to pick April 1st?
As
Yeah.
far as it,
Yeah, as far as like April Fools. I don't know. It seems to be an odd day to be sending out notifications, but I'll leave that up to you.
Maybe there's a marketing ploy there, a way in which we could turn
Yeah.
it to an advantage.
one additional thing also that we're setting up virtual field trips right now. What's it like to be a Uni 6th grader for a day? In the past, they've been really successful. In the past, they've been in person. But we are setting that up virtually right now to happen through the end of February and early March. And then I would love to set up socially distant, safe building tours as well, just so we differentiate ourselves from other schools they've applied to.
Yeah, that would be good if people are interested.
Yep, it's on my radar.
So, I mean, those are the steps we're taking now. I think we designed this plan out back in September with the idea of like having a healthy applicant list as of the lottery so that we wouldn't need to hustle beyond the lottery and continue to collect applications. The plan B here, and like it seems to be more real given where we are now, is that we will continue to recruit after the lottery and do so through the summer if we have to, as we have in the past when we've needed to. And so that's just the reality of it. But I think there are a couple of other short-term moves.
What else can you do before then? Right? I mean, are there other things, even if they cost money, right? Because at this point, if you get 5 more or whatever, that'd be worth it. So is there, rather than hustling all summer?
Well, I mean, we talked about this a little bit last month. I mean, our widest net is going to be that mass mailing.
Yeah.
There are other schools that also mass mail, so we've got to have something within that mailing that separates us from other schools. We talked a little bit about kind of like sort of like gifts, and there were different opinions about whether that was the right move, even among this team last month. We just want to differentiate. So how do we do so? The promo, the video should do that, and we may provide something modest that is a token of like, hey, here's the school, keep us in mind. I think that and like continuing to badger our feeder schools and like work those relationships matter a lot. I didn't list this here, and I should have, that our 6th grade families are quite happy based on the survey data that we collected back late this fall and winter. So they are our best kind of like cheerleaders for this. And we've got kind of a collection or a handful of 6th grade parents who are willing to sort of get the word out on our behalf. Leveraging them is important. And so I think we don't have a really powerful parent group at our school right now. It's been kind of up and down. Like that to me is a long kind of a move or investment worth kind of making for a number of benefits, but recruitment being one. So that's what's on our mind. Those are the ideas and the actions we're taking now. And we'll report out next month. I think just with the recruitment team, I do want to begin increasing the frequency with which we meet. I think that's helpful too in thinking about the day-to-day actions we're taking. And so that's something kind of like from a managerial move that I want to also embark on.
Okay, I mean, if we need to talk before next month's meeting, just convene something.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the latest with regard to dashboard. Are there any other questions on? You'll see that the tables in green are the ones that are highlighted or updated over the past month. Again, I don't think the others are worth a group discussion tonight, but I'm happy to field any questions you have.
Great. Okay, strategic planning.
All right. So I want to continue with the conversation last month, and some of this is being borrowed from the SLC call on Wednesday. So Jim and Jake were on that call. Apologies for some of the redundancies here, but maybe you can help me in streamlining this and making kind of the most poignant points highlighted. So let me do that. I'll go to this, and then I want to go to. All right, that's that. That's that. That's that. So I want to do a couple of things now. I want to share out graduation results, which were part of the school leader report. I want to talk through kind of like what I see as strengths and some areas to continue to grow in with that review. And then I want to move into a conversation about a 5-year plan. If you recall last meeting, I came forth with a whole bunch of ideas and priorities that I thought were important. And I think coming out of our meeting last month, and then in with some meetings with even some of my team members, I took a step back and said, hey, look, it's cool that these initiatives could be promising, but I think where we should go is starting with the outcomes that are most important to us. And then from there, working into someone's coming in. And then from there, working into the actions we take to see those outcomes through. So I'm going to take a step back with that after looking at graduation, and then we'll look back at those initiatives just to connect them, because I think there is a through line there. So with that, we'll get going. So I'm looking at graduation results. Give me a thumbs up if you guys can see my screen. Cool. And so what you see here is what you saw in the school leader report, which is a comparison of graduation rates for students who entered 9th grade in 2016 and graduated in 4 years. And Unity is the first bar, New York State is the second bar, New York City is the third bar. And then I selected a host of interesting comparison schools, from Success Academy to Achievement First Crown Heights to 2 CMOs. Mesa is a notable charter high school near us. It opened up at around the same time. Bedford Academy is a selective high school. It's a DOE school. Some of our top performing 8th graders end up there after graduating from middle school. Williamsburg Charter is a rather large charter school, charter high school in Williamsburg. They graduate a cohort of about 200 kids every year. And then Boys and Girls High Schools in Bed-Stuy, that's our students. Many of our students zone to school. So if they weren't to opt into some other school, that's the school they'd be programmed into. And so I think just looking at this, the takeaways here is that our 4-year graduation rate is significantly above state level, significantly above the city level, and on par with some of the other notable schools here. So I think it's something kind of to be proud of. And this is obviously something that is meaningful to our success as reflected by what our authorizer looks at when thinking about the promise of school. So
what should we make of the success number, Josh?
It's
right?
weird. It's kind of funky. I don't know what's going on there. Like if you go to their reporting page on SED's website, they've got a 75% graduation rate, where all 75% of their students are graduating with a local diploma. So I don't know if they just kind of like took the ball and kind of went home with it. Like there's like I don't know if they're just trying to do something other given the pandemic and given some of the weirdness of testing and things, but it's not completely it's not something I completely have my head around yet, but this is what's provided by them.
It could also mean that they've got stricter requirements, right?
it gets funky. That's a great question. And like, we've kind of like thought about like that notion too. There are some benefits to that. And like, the argument is you're setting kids up for post-secondary success if like the bar is a bit higher and you're providing support for kids to get there. The thing is, like, for a family, if you don't meet that bar and you're a month away from graduation or 2 months, you can simply go down the street and enroll in another school that has requirements that match the state kind of levels, and you're good. So I don't know. I mean, I know of at least one person who worked at that network high school a couple of years ago, and there was never any mention of the requirements being different than what the state requires. So
And the denominator is all their 12th grade students, or the denominator is kids who started in 9th grade?
The latter. Kids of they call it's a cohort. So the 9th grade entry cohort of 2016 in this case.
Okay, so it's attrition, right? It's they're kicking people out, so they
Could be.
Right.
Yeah, it could be some of that too. That's right. Yeah, it's hard to say. Again, the local diploma stuff, which we'll talk about in a moment, is what's strange to me. It's not like a lot of the other schools listed here, in the way that the way in which they accounted for the type of diploma their kids earned. All right, so I'm going to move us forward, and we're going to look at, so in addition to looking at all students, we're going to look at some groups of interest here, some subgroups of interest, including this next table, which are students with disabilities. Same comparisons. The difference here is you do see on the x-axis the percentage of students of the cohort that are part of this subgroup. And so at Unity, about 28% of our students from this cohort had IEPs and were students with disabilities. So as you look across the board, you'll note that we do have a higher concentration of students in this cohort with disabilities than our peers, and significantly more than the state averages or city averages. And yet we're graduating students with disabilities at a fairly high rate in comparison to these other entities, significantly so in looking at the state and city. And so I think I'm very proud of this, and thinking about the hustle that it takes to kind of help kids negotiate Regents exams and course credits over time to make that mark. It's no different than what any other school has the ability and opportunity to do, and I think we do that well. So it's I think something that separates us from some of the other schools listed here. Are there questions about this table or what this data reflects? Cool, I'll move this forward. So for the next group, these are students who are deemed economically disadvantaged. And so you'll see the same general trend across the board. At Unity, 65% of our students were in this category. And so the graduation rate here is favorable to state and city average, as well as a number of the other schools here. So this is something else to be pleased with, and something we should take pride in. Questions here? Cool. And the next group of interest, these are students who identify as Black or African American. And I add this here just because of where we are as a society now, and some of the reckoning going on, where like I firmly believe there's some serious institutional racism going on in our country, and it does create barriers to the degree to which kids are able to kind of negotiate school and be successful. And I'm referring to kids of color. And so here, same results. 82% of our families and kids identify as Black or African American. Our graduation rate for that subgroup was 97%, which is significantly higher than 78% and 76% with the average state and city school respectively. So some things to be proud of here as we think about the way in which we are promoting racial equity in our systems and taking it seriously. So these are some of the stats coming from our first go at this, and there are reasons to be proud. It's a great kind of foundation to build from. And I want to talk about some of the ways in which we get better now. So this is kind of a busy chart. And so this provides graduation rates and the types of diplomas that kids from each school or entity receive. So in blue are the overall rates, and you saw those in the first slide I presented, What's in red are the number or percentage of students from a cohort earning an advanced Regents diploma. That essentially means they took a few additional Spanish courses or language courses, passed their Regents exam in a foreign language, and then passed in an additional science Regents and math Regents exam. What's in yellow are like just sort of like the middle of the aisle kind of graduation. It's the default. And so if you earn a Regents diploma, it means that you passed, you earned 22, 24 credits and you passed 5 Regents exams. The local diploma is for students with disabilities. And essentially the big difference there is that a student with a disability is able to pass a Regents exam with a 55 instead of a 65, which is the sort of like low, it's sort of the lowest passing rate for the general population. And so what you see here is at Unity, we've got fewer students with an advanced Regents diploma. I'm going to talk a bit about what that's about in a moment. You'll see the Regents diplomas at 80%, and then you'll see local diplomas where, again, we're serving significantly more kids with disabilities, reflected in more of our students earning local diploma than some of the comparisons here. Success here seems to be an anomaly. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. So I think we should just disregard the data for now, but that's what's presented at the state level in the reporting. And so you can see some of the comparisons across the board. With regard to advanced Regents diplomas, I think there are 2 reasons for this right now. One is this was our first time at this. And so with the Spanish requirement, we had more of our kids in our first 2 years taking computer science. It's a language course. We thought it would be valuable. We had a good teacher teach the course, and so that's what we did. Fewer of our kids were taking Spanish or a foreign language. We didn't offer as many courses. So that's one. So kids didn't have as many at-bats at taking 4 years of a foreign language. And then the others, I think we've got room to grow in terms of rigor and having kids take those math and science Regents exams, the second exam that they could take to then earn that diploma. I should say here that with the advanced diploma, like this doesn't come out until after kids have been accepted into colleges and things. So like it's not an impediment to like college options and post-secondary options. Maybe the other thing I'll mention here is we do have more of our students taking AP courses as opposed to advanced math and science courses. And so a student might take AP environmental science instead of chemistry. And that's a part of our offerings and a part of like college readiness in our opinion. But with that, the downside is they may not be taking a Regents chemistry course or a Regents physics course. So those are some of the reasons. I think the big reason I take away is like, okay, so we've got some room to grow with regard to preparing kids academically for some advanced coursework in high school and beyond. So that's where I see the sort of next level of work for us as a school. Let me pause there and see if there are any questions or comments on this busy table or questions about what I've presented thus far. All right, no questions. So I'm going to move us forward. I'm going to jump now. So you've got a sense of how we did graduation wise with our first go at this with our founding cohort. I now want, as I said, jump into outcomes and academic outcomes, grades 6 through 12 over the next 5 years. And I got to chat with members of the SLC about this last meeting. So it was good to get their input, and I'd love to get the input of the full team too. So what you see in front of you is a table where the general idea here is this. So we're aiming to, at the top of the page, be one of the top open enrollment independent charter schools in New York City based on academic growth and achievement, based on high school graduation, and based on college and career preparation. So that's the North Star. With that, these goals, I think, reflect that. These outcomes reflect that. These are only academic outcomes. We're interested in non-academic outcomes, kids developing good, sound habits, et cetera, that may not show up in kind of testing and other outcomes here, but I'm focusing today's discussion on those academic outcomes. And so what you see in the table is you see some of the outcomes that I think are important as of middle school, academic outcomes that build on middle school achievement and growth and reflect a readiness for college, high school level, And then post-secondarily in yellow, we've begun drafting out some of the things that we see as most important to setting kids up to be successful beyond high school. And so things like finishing out college, how many kids are going to 2 or 4 year colleges, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to focus less on that today and want to just present out some of the ideas for grades 6 through 12. So what you'll see here in the middle school is like I see sort of 2 general outcomes that are important to us to achieve if we're looking to, over time, be one of the top mom and pop schools with regard to academic growth and achievement. And to me, what that means is that our kids are demonstrating proficiency in math and ELA and in science in many cases at fairly high levels, where a majority of our students, 50 to 60% of our students, are showing that. If that were to happen, I would argue that we are among the elite schools in New York City with regard to the students that we are privileged to serve, the high number of students with disabilities that we serve, and then the growth that they would show over time to get to these sorts of levels. So those are the outcomes we're looking for. I feel like during the last meeting we had, there was an open question about, hey, what does achievement look like here? And so I want to be very concrete about what that looks like here. To me, it's like over half of our kids, and then some, earning proficiency or above marks on state exams here. So I think that's one. And I think if we're doing that as of 8th grade, we're setting our kids up to do high school, college prep ready work as of 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So to me, that's foundational. So I want to pause there, and as you kind of take in this table and get a sense of those outcomes, see if there are any clarifying or probing questions that people have. Cool. So in addition to that, at the high school level, if you look at the outcomes listed, there's a balance. There's a balance of Regents exams and the scores that students are earning on those exams, mainly in math and ELA. And then there are some outcomes around SATs and the percentage of students who are scoring college-ready scores, which is a 10-10 now. And then the number of students who are scoring on the AP exams a passing mark, which is a level 3 or above. And so over time, as you look at where we were last year and the year before, if we're talking about Regents exams, and you know exams weren't administered last year, you'll get a sense of where we are currently, and then where I see trajectory-wise us going if we're improving as we should, which then gets into some of the priorities that I believe are most important in getting us there. So going back to what I presented a moment ago with graduation rates, right now we have kids, we're hustling and supporting kids to the end to get over that bar and graduate from high school. And that's a big achievement for a great many of our students and families, and a source of pride. The next level of work is in better preparing them to be fully successful, confident, and ready to achieve it at high levels beyond high school. And like these sorts of outcomes, I think, get us there. And so they're meant to build off of each other. And over time, over 7 years of schooling, end up at a point where our kids are graduating at high levels and moving on to some really promising options for them. Let me pause there again and see if there are any questions or insights based on what I've provided. All right. Let's see. I'm going to move us back to some. So what I want to do is I've talked you through graduation now. I've talked you through some of the outcome goals that we're looking to move on. And then I want to go back to what we discussed last month to round things out. Let me get Madonna back in here. There she goes. This is what we looked at last month with some of the big priorities that I see as promising to achieving at high levels and reaching that ultimate North Star goal of being one of the best open enrollment schools in New York City in Charterland. And so I've highlighted in green, like if you were to ask me, what are the 5 things, Josh, you believe are most critical or highest leverage to achieving those sorts of outcomes and that North Star that you've put forward? Here they are. And I think it's about like curriculum and continuing to build out a coherent grade 6 through 12 curriculum that is aligned with advanced placement coursework. That's one. Second, it's about people. This is still very much about like the talented team, and it's about both the talented leaders and the talents of our teachers. One of the things I didn't mention last month, which I would add to the list here or just expand on, is that our use of data in tracking and then intervening to promote student growth has progressed over the past several years, but I still think that's something that's untapped and something that if we devoted more time, attention to, would result in more of our kids growing more quickly academically than is now the case. And I think that's important. And so I would add that to the list. And then I think, I had a good discussion with Jake and Jim about this toward the end of our call on Wednesday. I do believe that right now we are at a comparative disadvantage by being a middle school, high school, and not being an elementary, middle school, and high school. So I do think that we'd have more of our students coming in at grade level and be playing less catch up if we expanded downward and became ultimately one K through 12 school, which I think has merits academically and non-academically, and has some interest among our families. So these are the things that I think matter most to us reaching those goals if I had to prioritize and select the top 5. Let me pause again and see if there are any questions, insights, concerns. Let's talk about this a little bit. What you got? Hey, buddy.
I think you've heard from Jim and me already.
I was wondering whether folks were still around. All right, good. Thank you, Jake. I can't right now, buddy, but maybe later, okay? Okay. Maybe about 8:30 or 9. All right. So I think that is the longer version of strategic planning at this point in time. We begin with what are our outcomes now? What are we seeking to do over the next 5 years? And then how do we get there? And that's kind of the present standing of things. I appreciated 2 notes from last month. One was Jeanette's naming of consistency, which I think matters a great deal and comes down to like people and curriculum. And so that is on my mind as I think about how we consistently have students experience success and growth over time, beginning with wherever they are, moving forward. And then the other feedback last month that I recall and want to continue to think about and address ultimately is the feedback coming from Marion, where her questions were, what have we accomplished thus far? Where have we come up short and why? And so I think those are still on my mind to think about kind of building this thing out as we think about planning for next year and then some. So that's the current state of affairs with strategic planning. And I'll pause there and keep you on the edge of your seats as you wait for the next episode.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. Okay, let's move on to AFC.
Cool. And I think, yeah, let's go right in the AFC. And I think Leslie,
Yep, I'm on.
all right. And here we go. Update as of the end of December. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you have the slide, Josh, or do you need me?
I can open it up. Give me a second. And there is an echo in the house. So, give me a moment to pull that up.
Sure. I'm going to talk to the executive summary.
Mhm. Hmm. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Committee meetings, AFC. And financial report notes.
The report notes.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Josh.
Anytime.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to be speaking to the December report. The information that's on this report was already vented and viewed with the Finance Committee on Friday. So I'm going to be pretty high level. In regards to net income, actuals, full year, well, not actuals, full year where we are right now as an outlook is projected to be $1,500 worse than budget. Pretty much how did we get there? In regards to revenues is pretty much flat to what we had last month. There was no changes to our enrollment due to using the most recent invoice, which is the fourth invoice, which is as of January. In regards to expenses, there was very little change in expenses. Expenses is expected to be higher than budget by $105,683. Some of these expenses are being covered by the ESSER grant. And also, there was very little activity in regards to projections to the full year. Compensation is still expected to be over budget because some of those expenses are going to be used by the ESSER grant. General and administrative webcams, there was a slight increase in that department. And that's because of the additional purchasing of some equipment. Professional services is where we saw a savings in our expenses. We have the elimination of the external substitutes, the reduced financial management service fees, and a slight haircut in athletics. Classroom and curriculum pretty much stayed the same as last month. We saw a slight uptick in technology expenses, and that's because there's been some additional spending for the computer repairs. As the children use the computers, in some cases, the Chromebooks will have to be fixed. And in addition to the purchases of some additional hotspots. In miscellaneous expenses, we grossed up the PPP loan interest by another month. And there's also some unallocated expenses that we're still working our way through. Other than that, a majority of the other expenses are still being held at budget. Any questions before I move on to cash flow? Okay, in regards to cash on hand, as of December 31st, we're at $4.9 million. That's excluding the escrow balance. The reason why that balance is showing such a high amount is because as of December, there was the deposit of the fourth invoice of the per pupil expense. So that's causing the cash balance to be at a higher level than normal. That's about 146 days of cash on hand with the PPP CARES loan. And without the PPP CARES loan, which is about $1.6 million, that would be 100 days of cash on hand. Cash to be carried over into full year 22 is $3 million. That's if we keep the PPP CARES grant and if it's, loan and it's forgiven. Without the PPP CARES loan, it's about $1.4 million. Cash on hand at FOMB is about $1.1 million.
Good question. On the net income above, that's like on an accounting basis. Do we have like a cash flow net income for fiscal year 21? Is it basically the same spreadsheet we were working on for the real estate, but it's basically just add back the depreciation?
Yes,
That's the main difference?
yes. When we do the cash flow, we don't include the depreciation. We don't include the deferred grant. So when I say that cash to be carried over into full year 22, that $3 million and the $1.4 million is off of the cash flow report that's included in the financials.
Got it.
I didn't do a comparison, Jake, of what was done for the mortgage. I didn't look at that to do a comparison to see if they're the same.
No, that's okay. I almost don't want it to be compared. I want to make sure that that's looking right based on this. And so it sounds like we've got $200,000 of accounting net income, but we're really up from a cash flow basis. We're adding more like $400,000 or $500,000 in a typical year. Is that right? Like when we say that, I know the cash that carried over wasn't just from this year, but if you were to look at it, just the cash that carried over from 2020 or the cash that we expect to carry over from 21 to 22, is it roughly like 500,000?
Thinking broadly, it could be. And the only reason why I say it could be because we had so much cash to carry over from last year because of COVID and, and the remote learning and the additional and the savings on the expenses. That would make sense, but I don't have the comparison in front of me to say that that's absolutely right.
No, it's just good for me. I'm just sort of sense checking all the different numbers, but okay, that's helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, that concludes my report.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie.
Yep. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Okay.
All right. That's AFC. Mario, is there anything else we're reporting out to the full board based on the meeting on Friday?
No, I don't think so. I think, enrollment.
Yeah.
But, and then I think we were going to talk a little more about, initial broad categories of budgeting, but I don't think that has to be the topic for this
We can
year.
return to that next month. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, DFC.
How much, I think I provided, our main kind of like discussion points in the school leader report in 3 bullets. I don't know how much depth we want to go into before an approval item a little later on, or perhaps executive committee. I guess I'd look to Jim and Jake to offer recommendations here.
Well, I think we've had so many meetings over the course of the last month. Hopefully everybody's kind of up to speed. Is that the case, or do we need to get anybody up to speed?
Maybe just enough so. And so I think just again, in looking at kind of reports now, or just the school leader report, if you have that in front of you folks, I think they're kind of like 3 big headlines. One is that we are actively pursuing the possibility of purchasing our high school facility at 584 Driggs. And so that's kind of been ongoing over the past several months. And that to make that happen, we have been in discussions with lenders. We have been in discussions with council, and we have begun preparing an application for such a move. And so it's in process. And obviously it's an exciting prospect, one that does require a bit of work right now, but in the end, it would mean us coming away from a 35-year tenure in our building, owning it, as opposed to giving it back or moving out. So there's a push right now to make that happen. And so thanks team again for the efforts thus far, and it's in the making. We'll see. I don't know. That's the high level update. Does that make sense?
I think that's good. If anybody wants to go into more detail, you know, wants a better, or throw a description, raise your hand. Happy to do it. Okay. Great. ECPC.
I think the main gist of our call on Tuesday, if there's an echo there, team. There's an echo there, team. It's just that I got to debrief with Trudy on just the visits from this past month. So thanks, team, again. I think we had 4 or 5 board members come in and visit our middle school. Good conversations afterwards. So just felt good about the experience. Felt good to have you guys seeing kind of like classes in action. I know our teammates appreciated seeing you and having you there too. It felt connected. So that's important for a school and a board. So that's a big kind of like plus for us. And so I think for the committee, it's one of the 3 goals we have this year. And so we feel good about kind of achieve that. And we'll continue with the visits in the coming month. So if you didn't have a chance to visit the school, we'll be offering that option up in March. Or I'm sorry, late February.
Okay, thank you. SLC.
My sense is the only thing we didn't talk about tonight, which we'll talk much more about next month, is just some of the STAR data, those external assessments that give us a sense of how our kids are doing in this very weird place right now, remote learning and pandemic. And so I got some additional numbers I can share out full school next month in detail. So I'll do that then.
Okay. And associate board. I don't see anybody here. So, okay. Let's move on to approval items. Josh, were we going to add something to this?
Yeah, why don't we'll just do the minutes first and then figure out what the other item is we're approving and then bring it to a vote.
You know what? I can't see everybody. Can you stop unsharing, Josh?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, perfect. Turn your videos on. Let's see. Okay, so prior minutes from the prior meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review?
Great detail.
Okay, any questions?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? I need to see the videos on, guys.
All right.
Bruce.
My video isn't working.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think we've got quorum, so I think right now, officially toward the vote, we're good.
good. Okay, thanks, everybody. Josh, you want to go over the other item?
Yeah, I guess I'd lean on others to make sure that we're approving the right thing. Mario, you're kind of the expert here. What would you say is up for approval tonight to move things forward?
I don't have the piece of paper in front of me. So what item are we talking about? Are we talking about the building?
Yeah, the building item. That's the only other approval
Okay.
item.
So I think we need to approve 2 things. And I'm also speaking under Jake's surveillance here. The first one is approving, and I'm going to have to recuse myself from that one, is approving my firm, the firm partner at Sullivan & Cromwell, serving as pro bono counsel to Unity and FONB in connection with the potential purchase of the building. And that's, again, done on a pro bono basis. We've sent a draft engagement letter. I think some of you were the recipients of that people should take a look at. But because I am technically interested, this requires a board vote, even if there's no payment. So that's the first part. And then the second part is we need to pick a counsel for the bond deal. And then Jake and I can talk about that, but we can do the SNC one first, I guess.
Okay, so we are voting to approve the appointing Sullivan & Cromwell as counsel with respect to the potential purchase of the high school building. We'll draft something pretty around that. All in favor? Okay, thank you.
You
Great.
got to
And then-
note that I'm not voting, whoever's keeping the minutes.
Okay, terrific. And then the second item, are we approving bond counsel, or do we want to have some subset of this team do the final choice?
Jake, what do you think? We were kind of exchanging messages offline. Should we?
I think we can go ahead with Oric if you're comfortable with Oric. I think that seems fine.
Okay.
So we interviewed we mostly interviewed two firms. One of them usually serves as counsel for the city as issuer. So they sort of said they preferred for us not to hire them. So it made the choice a little easier. Oric has provided us a proposal that has hourly rate billing up to 115,000. And then after 115,000, they give us like a 15% discount. And then after 132,000, it goes to a 33% discount. They estimate the 115. It's difficult. I mean, to me, I actually think that hopefully, I imagine that our case should be a simpler one than most, because S&C is going to be serving as pro bono counsel for a lot of the real estate stuff and the sort of the board governance stuff. And so it's really just the bond work that we need Oric for. So I'm hoping this comes in way less. And I guess the only other thing I'll note is if we want, instead of having this sort of like what they call a collar, where over the estimate their rates go down, they would also be comfortable just giving us a smaller discount up front and not having a collar.
But no cap.
No cap. We don't have a cap in any case. It's just the rate basically goes down as the hours go up. So I don't feel strongly unless anybody else does.
And that the amount of services I think we can kind of keep an eye on and manage and figure out sort of up front what it is that they would normally do that pro bono counsel could take on competently and within reason. So we can all work together to try to keep things under control. And they do seem very knowledgeable, and I think all of us who are involved in this are going to have to be mindful of not over relying on external counsel, because it's just going to be hourly billing. So the fees are going to rack up, but we can finalize a fee arrangement. I think the key here is sort of the board knowing that, this is not, because it's a municipal bond, it's not something that we're comfortable doing pro bono. It's kind of a niche area, and the people who do this for charters are specialized in doing it for charters. So if they did it for free for charters, they would never make any money. So the responsible thing to do here is to pay somebody who does this for a living.
I guess the only other thing I'll add is, so there's also going to be counsel for the lender and for the city, and we pay those counsels, but it will be paid out of our bond issuance, and there's statutory. It's just a set number. There's no negotiating it. And for what it's worth, that number on the city side will be 135,000. So I thought that the 115 estimate sounded sort of like in the ballpark of reasonable.
Okay, good. Any questions? Okay, so the motion is to approve Oric as counsel for the bond issuance. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, anything else, Josh, to approve? Okay, good. Okay, move on to public comment. No. Last thoughts? I really don't have any last thoughts. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Appreciate everybody jumping in. It's been a lot going on behind the scenes this month for some reason. So and I think the coming month's going to be more of the same. So let's keep pedaling.
Yeah.
But appreciate everybody jumping in and helping out here.
All right.